Hello YouTube, today we're looking at the Boss SD1 Overdrive pedal. So, this is a pretty run-of-the-mill overdrive pedal. I mean, Boss are a very, very well-known, very well-respected company. I got this from my mate Dub. Thanks, mate. I swapped the TC Spark Mini for this because he wanted a kind of a different overdrive thing, and the Spark's more of a boost, so it's kind of more bouncy, more full, kind of more of a tube sack kind of thing. It's a different feel, it's a different kind of overdrive, and I've been wanting to shoot out a load of different overdrives because I've liked the Joy ones I've had, the vintage, and I've liked the Digitech Bad Monkey, and I've liked trying out different things, especially cheap overdrive pedals, because you can just buy one, see if you like it, don't like it, sell it, get another one, you know, whatever, you lost nothing. So the guitar I'm using is my 2017 PRS SE Custom 24, locking tuners, upgraded capacitor, new nut. Apart from that, it is stock. So yeah, this is my Motivator. Upgraded the tube to an Electro Harmonix 1, and we're going through a Blackstar HD 112. Okay, so I've got the tones straight up. I've just set the level so it's about right with the amp, and the drive is set to a smidge over a quarter of the way up, so quite low. So here is it without. This is just the gain coming from the amp, just a little bit, just to give it a tiny bit of break up. So I dig in, it breaks up a little bit more. There you go. So they get decay up on the reverb. There you go. So, the overdrive. Bit more drive. It compresses the single notes really nicely, it sustains, so if I go without and I just go, sounds nice. Okay, so the gain, I found that the tone controls are quite temperamental. So to start off with, the Motivator just has one tone control, which is sort of a bass cut or a treble cut. It's kind of the same thing on the Super Overdrive. So I find, for example, with the amp, if I have it too far over to the scratchy side, say if it's in the middle and I feel it could do a little bit more treble. If I turn it up, you will actually lose bass as well as getting a bit of treble, and it can become a little bit boxy and a bit MIDI. So there's a balancing act always to be struck when you've got one tone control, and it's about working with your gear and trying to find the point where it reacts to the signal the way you want. And of course I just adjusted this a tiny bit, and that helped it sing. So what I've done here, I've got the pedal, and I've been fiddling with it for a while now. I've got the tone just below 12 o'clock, so it's on the darker end of the spectrum, on the darker side rather than the lighter side, because if it goes a bit lighter, I find it thins out the rest of the sound. It takes away all the bass end. So what I've done is I've slightly brightened the amp, and I do mean a really small amount. I've just tweaked the amp to be a tiny bit brighter, and I've tweaked the pedal to be slightly a bit darker, so that when you add the overdrive, it retains the thickness. So I'm going to stop playing an A. I'm just playing bloody A. It's a very mid-focus sound. It's almost honky. So I'm going to move it up like just a tiny bit. EQ. 12 o'clock now. Turn the amp up. So if we compare that to my Joyo vintage overdrive, it's a tube scream, it's a green overdrive, you know what it is. So if just for a couple of seconds I go, I think single notes where it comes out, so I want to do single notes all the time. Joyo. So the boss there is a little bit thicker. Tube screamer and the overdrive now. it's a bit empty and a bit... I think to get the EQ thing that the pedal does happening, you kind of need to push the gain a bit, because when it was lower it felt a bit held back, a bit boxy, that kind of like the high end had been shelved off. But I mean, all I've done is turn the drive up and the level down, and the tone is pretty much at, well, it's a tiny smidgen past 12, a tiny bit. That's where it was before, so darker. And this is bright. More like that. It's about 1 o'clock on the tone control. When it got like that, there's no bass in the chords anymore. It's got to come down. It's got to come on. Reel it back in. That's about, the tone's about 2 o'clock. Sorry, I'm aware I'm standing in the way of the speaker. I'm trying to get a direct sound to the camera, so. And we'll go quarter of the way up. It's going to be really, really horrible. And we'll go. This is dark. It's a quarter of the way up. Sorry, on the tone. And back to 12 o'clock. Slightly tweaked towards the trebly side. Okay, so again, everything's roughly 12 o'clock, and that seems to be where everything sounds the best. Go to the tube screamer. I was excited when I thought, I tell you what, I actually get a Boss pedal for once, because I've not had Boss in years. I had the CE5 and had the FZ5, and they eventually just went because I found other things that did the job for me better. But I really like this Overdrive. Now, this doesn't feel really like tube screamers, as it were, which is what I'm used to. I'm used to the Joyo because I use that most of the time. And the Bad Monkey as well, which I've used less so, because it's more harsh, but that's a different video. You can go and watch that one if you want. So the Boss, it does make your amp feel more tube-like. You do get kind of a sag there. There's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of richness, there's a lot of warmth there. When you get that dynamic thing where you just sort of just push in with your pick, you just get that slight break up, that sort of physics feedback thing going on. It's great. It's a very clear pedal. EQ aside, we'll get to that in a minute, but the voicing of the pedal is very clear. It doesn't have a lot of gain in it. I mean, most of the time the gain was probably no higher than about there. But when I pushed up to there, especially towards the end, that's where I felt that it lived quite comfortably. I think that's the sort of thing that it's good at. Not that setting, I mean, that sort of amount of gain that it's giving the amp, because that depends on your guitar and your amp and all that gubbins, but you know, I think it doesn't really work as well as an EQ pedal, or sort of a, should we say, a tone conditioner, so we say, like a hair conditioner. It's because it's only got the one knob, it doesn't really do. Because it's only got one knob, it can't really help you when it comes to EQ. The thing that the pedal does is it adds gain, and of course it does its own EQ thing, but in a way that, say, a tube screamer shelves the bottom end and pushes the mids, and you can pull the drive back and up the level. So basically what you're doing is just conditioning the sound that's going forward. It's more of a Deutner, like a Teuger. It's more of a Deutner than an actual overdrive. This is a big sounding, heavy hitting overdrive. I mean, it's not massively high gain, but what I mean is, if you've seen my review of the Joyo Ultimate Drive, the one with the big samurai mask on it, the black with a red face on it, that's a very, very big sounding pedal, but it's very, very saturated. This is less saturated than the Ultimate Overdrive, but it does have that sense of lumbering towards you, sort of an Iron Giant sort of thing. There is a... It's a very big sounding pedal, but that's not a bad thing. Again, you can adjust that with the EQ here. It's tonally, now this is different because tonally it's fairly transparent. It doesn't really boost or cut any particular frequencies. It's not particularly, it's not bad. I mean, it's not a pedal that's particularly dark or bright, but what I mean is, when you have the tone above halfway, it tends to get very boxy, because or not quite thin, but yeah, kind of boxy. There's a lot of upper mids and a decent amount of bass and mids, to be fair, but there's not a whole lot of treble. I find when you go over to the darker side, the treble comes through, and it's a big sounding, it sounds like a big, huge, rich, bang, sort of schwang guitar sound. That's the sort of thing. If perhaps a bit dark, again, you can adjust that to taste using your EQ pedal. But to me, that's what this is for. It's for a big chordy amp, rock and roll sound, you know? I don't think it's the sort of thing that you could probably use for metal. I mean, you could if you, not on its own, if you had, say, a high gain amp, or say if you have EQ pedals or compressors or noise gates or other things like that, or your gain stacking, something to condition the sound, then I think you could probably do that. But with this on its own, I don't know whether or not it has that tightness there to do that sort of thing, because it does feel quite transparent. This isn't true bypass, but I don't really notice much of a difference when it's in a loop or out of a loop, because it just sounded the same when I tried it. So I've left it out of the loop. I just had it in front of my EQ pedal. So it's basically straight in front of the amp. Haven't mentioned the obvious stuff, so let's go through that. It's Boss, so it's really, really good build quality. Metal chassis. Good quality switch, it's not going to break. You can put a battery in there, so you push that down, and you can put a battery in there if you want. I never do that because they might leak at some point and ruin the pedal. That's apart from if the battery dies at any point. I can't be doing with any of that. So there you go. It's a, yeah, but you can take the arse off it if you need to. I don't think I need to, but stay if you need it. This one's made in Taiwan, but it's made with Japanese parts, so that's what my mate told me. It's one of the silver label ones, which apparently makes a difference. There you have it. It's a one input, one output, very solidly built overdrive pedal. It's kind of a natural sounding, big sounding overdrive. It's kind of a pushing your amp into more gain rather than an EQ kind of overdrive in the same way a tube screamer is. It's a different thing for a different job, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to guitar solos rather than rhythm playing, I feel like this is a really, really nice feeling pedal to use as a solo pedal. As a sort of a solo boost maybe, or you just have your rhythm sound as your lead sound and you just play over it. I find if you do that, maybe this will be a bit dark, because the single notes feel very natural, very tubey, very warm, but they can be a bit subdued. So regarding playing solos and single notes on this, I like the way it compresses under your fingers. You can kind of feel the note and you're kind of squeezing it. It is kind of squelchy, and I like that characteristic of this gain structure. It does feel quite organic and natural. It doesn't feel forced or not compressed, it's a silly word, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It feels like an extension of your guitar tone. It's like salt and pepper, and I really like that. It does react really nicely to whatever's put in front of it. I tried it with a Strat a few days ago, and it does do its thing with a Strat, but it still sounds like the Strat. It doesn't imbue too much of its personality onto the guitar, but you do have to be aware of the EQ section, which is a bit, depending on what you want, what you're going for, and what gear you've got, and blah 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 blah, how hot it is that day, what colour pants you're wearing. It does have its own characteristic. It does have its own little foibles. It definitely has a usable range of controls and a scope outside of that probably I wouldn't use. But again, it's different applications. When I played single notes on this, it felt a bit boxy. It felt very mid-rangey. There wasn't a lot of high end there at all. There was a decent amount of bass and mids, but again, it didn't really cut through. It's not a piercing overdrive pedal. It's a thickener kind of overdrive pedal. And again, you can add gain, and obviously there's the tone knob there, but the tone knob is more of a shape thing. It's a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. The same with the amplifier. The way the tone control reacts is kind of a broad brush, as opposed to maybe a Tube Screamer where it's already doing its EQ thing and you can change the EQ. This is definitely a different animal from the Tube Screamer. If you think that all overdrive pedals are the same, trust me, they're not. That's all I can say. They are different. Part of it is the way it feels. As with all things, your mileage will vary. If you've got one of these, let me know what you think of it. I really like this. It's definitely a different flavour of overdrive from the other ones I've got. Again, it's very inexpensive, and I love inexpensive pedals. So there you go. It's the Boss SD1. Did you say SD1? It's the SD1. Thank you very much for watching. Leave any thoughts down in the comments, and I'll try to get to them. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Like, subscribe, all that rubbish. Until then, I'll see you. Bye.
Bye!